Welcome to Synchronicity. My guest this week is Jessa Reed. Jessa has two podcasts, Mormon and The Meth-Head and Soberish, and they're both incredible. She's incredible. Big thank you to Ramin from Rainbow Brain Skull for introducing us. Amazing. Mwah. It's so nice when you meet. Did I just do a fucking Borat voice? Jesus Christ. Oh boy. Well, we're off to a rocky start for this intro, but we're going to keep going. I met Jessa, like I said, through Ramin. We connected. I'm planning an LA trip. I'll be there in November. I'm locking down the details for people who are there and want to get together and meet and hang out and do shit. But I was like, listen, when I come to LA, let's do a podcast. I'm trying to do more in-person ones. I was like, also, I'm near New York City. If you're ever in town, let me know. And as it turns out, she was there within a week. And so we sat down and did a podcast, and it was great. We went for a walk before. Kindred spirits, just easily talking about everything in the cosmic nature of reality. No problems whatsoever. She's fucking badass. She's basically, I think I've called her a reluctant mystic. She's basically just, she's dishing out alchemical and cosmic truths in just a cool, badass, and funny way. And that's the way it should be done. Does it have to be so serious and fucking annoying and lame and preachy and people talking about shit that they haven't directly experienced? No. Doesn't have to be like that, and Jess is proof of that. So go check out her stuff. There'll be links on all of the places you find this podcast. You know what to do. Do I really got to tell you? Speaking of telling you to do stuff, do you like weed? Do you like cannabis? Well, then you're going to love CBD oil because it's the male part of the female part. And we've been talking about how to balance masculine and did I say the male part of the female part? Oh, yeah. Still going to plow through this one. The male part of a female plant. Jesus Christ. I'm just keeping, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. What I'm trying to say is this. Hemp is the male version of cannabis. Marijuana, we call it marijuana. The female part that we smoke is the other part. I am butchering this fucking ad, but I'm sticking with it. That's my dedication to the people at Ned. Go to helloned.com. Use the code SYNC, SYNC at checkout. Get 15% off. Full spectrum CBD oil, body butter. You can use it for illicit things, not illicit, things you do in the bedroom. But you can do plenty of whatever you want. But if you get the full spectrum CBD oil, here's my promise to you. Do you believe imagination creates reality? I know it does. I'm going to make sure that anyone who orders something using that code gets a special hyperdrive dimensional portal shifting juice in it. Can I do that? You try it and see and find out, and you can report back to me. Worst case scenario, what? You spend $40 and you get some shit that makes you feel better? Not so bad, but it's going to happen. Go and use it. It's a magic potion. So again, helloned.com. Use the code SYNC, SYNC at checkout. Get CBD oil. Everyone's doing it. Don't be lame. Go and get that. Amazing ad. Fucking nailed it. I'm also doing tarot readings now. A lot of people came in droves when I was doing it for free. You got to pay a little bit of money. You're not so into it. That's fine. That's cool. But just a lot of people have been paying. And I think they recognize the transformative, you're telling yourself what's going on with these cards. I don't have to sell you on it. If you get it, you get it. Come and do it. Jessa also does tarot. Go do it with her too. She's got like 6 decks I saw in an Instagram thing she did. I said, what's that deck on the bottom left? She told me what it was. I looked at it. I'm like, should I get this? And yesterday, a bee or a hornet or something landed on my back. I think it was a big ass bee. And Alexis saw it and she's like, don't freak out. Whenever someone says don't freak out, that's when you start to freak out. Because why would they say don't freak out unless there's some scary fucking horrible thing on you? But anyway, bees are a sign of abundance. I'm looking at this tarot deck that Jessa said that she got and that she has. And I see a bee and I'm like, oh, okay, I got to get this deck. So I got that deck. That's how it works. Synchronicities abound in this episode. There's endless amount of stuff. Imagination creates reality. You're God. Open up to it. Accept it. Dislike it. Whatever. Bat it around. You'll eventually get it. One thing I've learned from Jessa is you don't have to convince people of anything. That's something I learned a few months ago for real, but I hear her saying it. I use her as a mirror. She reflects it back. You don't got to convince anyone of anything. If this shit is weird, then it sounds weird and you don't care. If you get it, buckle the fuck up because this episode's incredible. Support her and whatever she's doing. These are the people we want to be supporting in this new paradigm. She's going to be fine no matter what, but also the support's good. Rate and review this podcast. Yeah, that's it. Donate. What was I trying to do? I was trying to get something that I wanted to upgrade, but I couldn't remember what it is now. Obviously not that important, but donate anyway, because then I'll put it in. I'll get some more plugins. Anyway, album is coming. I got like 9 demos. I'm really proud of them. Collaborations are coming. Music is the best. Don't forget that. It's really just wonderful. I also have like 4 episodes locked and loaded with guests. So stay tuned for those. I don't know. Should I start doing merch? I'm torn on merch. I'm torn. I don't know what to do. It's really easy to do. I have designs for the show that were mean. Would you guys, you can write and tell me if you'd wear that. Noah@syncpodcast.com. If you're like, you know what, I'd wear a shirt and enough people write in, I'll do shirts and things that people like. It's easy. I've done it before. That's it. This is a pretty condensed intro because we got a lot of stuff coming up. Like I said, buckle up, smoke some weed, do what you got to do. This one is a treat. Without further ado, here is Jessa Reed.
I won't just on GP. I went and bought an Apple off of Marketplace just so I could have the pattern app.
What do you think about that app? You like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You like it a lot.
I like it because it's quick and to the point for people that are difficult to, who are very skeptical of astrology, and I don't have the time to
explain it,
do their fucking chart and stuff, So I'm like, download the pattern and then call me back with your I like the pattern because it's very, very specific and it's got transits in it. I like it. I think it's good.
I see. Here's what I have. I just got it like a week ago. I think I heard you mention it, and I think I heard like a Channing Tatum, Michael Donovan. Of course, this guy would call me now. You got on the podcast somehow, you fucker. He had a little awakening experience the other day. So.
Yeah.
I like the pattern. I couldn't recognize where the transits were. I downloaded an app that shows me what's going on. I think you described yourself as a kindergarten level understanding of astrology.
Yeah.
I'm like a newborn. Like
yeah.
I had, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm probably 5th grade.
5th grade is advanced.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Compared to me, I'm like an idiot. How did you get tuned into astrology? How long have you been doing it? You do readings now too?
I don't do astrological readings. I do tarot. And stuff. Okay, so I was a born-again Christian for 5 years before comedy for a year, then meth. And while on meth, I had gotten in an argument with someone about how astrology was demonic, which is ridiculous. Like, what a self-hating. It was right before I woke up, and so I believed myself to be a backslidden Christian. And I was just hanging out with other backslidden Christians and doing meth. And I was talking about how astrology is demonic. And this chick that lived in this apartment this house I was in, had an Astrology for Dummies book. And so I started reading it because someone asked me how it's demonic. And I was like, I don't know, Satan uses it. And they were like, what does that mean? And I was like, I don't have an answer for that. That's just something I've been told. So I read this book and I'm like, oh, this is actually just kind of science. I mean, not science by today's standards. Like, I know we like to mock this, but it's like you have planets and they represent something. You have houses and they represent something. You have, you have signs and they represent something. And then where those things are when you're born is just kind of your blueprint. And then where those things are in relative, it actually didn't even get that far in transits. This was all personality stuff. I think astrology is much better used to know the energy that we're currently in, because then you can ride the waves.
What about electional? So I didn't think too much about electional astrology. I'm kind of like, live in the moment. I'll plan my things out. When it happens, it'll align with what's going on. But I had a reading yesterday where it was just all transit based, conjunction based. And she's like, 3 years, this, 4 years, this. And normally 99 out of 100 people who would have talked to me like that, I would have been like, all right, they're just projecting their shit. But goddamn, I started researching. She told me to research Athena, Lilith, and what was the other one? Oh, Milarepa.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So there is a famous me carrying around a dead owl story, right?
Owls? Freaking me out.
Yeah, hold
now
on.
I know
No,
Athena.
it's going to
Okay.
get real fucking
Okay.
wild, and you can look at my Twitter to verify.
Okay,
this.
great.
So when I first died, I come back and I am at a dance club within a few weeks, and the lights turn on. The dance club, by the way, that I hung out in the era where I was waking up was called the Ohm. And the lights turn on, and at my feet is a necklace. And on one side is an owl, and on the other side is some other thing. And I don't know anything about anything. So I ask people what it is, and someone tells me it's Osiris. And so then I'm like, whatever this is, I am. And so someone tells me Osiris, which is interesting because then I was like, oh, I am absolutely Osiris. And I live out the next few years of alien school of learning who I am and what I'm supposed to do, what my job is, because I come back from a new death experience being told that I would have a very specific job in the shift, which I had prophesied over me when I was a Christian also. And so the Osiris thing lined up, Isis came along, whatever. Then later somebody tells me that necklace is Caesar. And I'm like, okay, well, those are two totally different things. But definitely this necklace wasn't Osiris. This was Greek and not Egyptian.
What you're wearing now?
No, this is something else. And so that necklace eventually broke and I lost it. But recently, because it was such a huge part of who I was, even though I wore this necklace and went on this Osiris journey, I think the Athena thing was for when I finally got to the place. That's what I did not find out that was the goddess Athena until a fucking month ago when I was like, I have to figure out what this owl was. And I start looking for the pendant that I had been wearing and I find it and it's a coin with Athena on one side and an owl on the other side. And my daughter's name is Lilith.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's what's going on. Yeah. Yep. That's what's going on. So shit's weird.
Yeah.
Shit is getting weirder. You are one of the only people I've listened to. No, one other person, Neville Goddard. He's dead. He taught me these techniques. And like, I sound like culty and new age. I have the same aversion. I worked with a lot of people who present a persona of being a spiritual teacher and then behind the scenes are a different way. I've seen what the corrupting influence of a spiritual ego trip can do to people. So when I start talking about some of the stuff, I have the same aversion. That's why I like listening to you so much. Is like, I catch myself saying, oh, well, if this sounds woo or new agey or culty, like, I get it. But I found these techniques from this dude. He basically did straight biblical interpretation, straight using the Bible. I grew up Jewish light. I was a Reformed Jew. So like there's no real, it's secular for the most part. So I didn't know anything about Jesus Christ. 16 years ago, this all makes sense. I'm going to tie it together. I told you about the experience where I had a synchronicity. Most listeners will be familiar with it. I thought I was Jesus Christ for 3 weeks. And that's weird because that's like, you're crazy, as Duncan pointed out. That's people thinking they're Jesus Christ. Or some other shit's going on.
It's also a symptom of the awakening.
Of course, because what I basically found out what Jesus Christ is, and this is a bold claim. I used to think it was a mushroom, all of these different things. Everything in the Bible, literally everything. And I have friends who came from strict Hasidic traditions who very much don't like when I talk about this because it reminds them of the people who would kind of use this as a cudgel to beat people down. But I just spoke about the Bible in the last episode because now you know shit's getting weird when I'm talking about Bible stories. But everything in the Bible is just a psychological allegory. Every character in the Bible, none of it is historical. None of these are actual characters. If you want to believe that they are, you can go to that realm where you can experience it. So they could be personified, but that's because we do that. So when you start to look at it like that, you get in the New Testament, which I had never read before, didn't know anything about Jesus Christ, this awakening. It's called the resurrection. It's when you wake up to who you really are inside of your own skull in Golgotha, and you go, holy shit, I'm God. You're still you. And now I'll connect it to something that makes a little more sense in tangible reality, which is the Rastafarians. The Rastafarians smoke a lot of weed, and they say this thing all the time. If you've ever been in Jamaica, I and I. That's exactly what they're talking about. Rastafarianism is a very strict biblical interpretation, and it basically says that you're God. God incarnates in man, in every single person born of a woman. There is a big I,
God, I am, the sense that we have in our head, and I, the individuated person. So this is what this guy's talking about. I found these talks on this thing. I've recounted the story a multitude of times, but I found this dude, Neville Goddard, and he started talking about your imagination creates reality. And I'm like, all right, this sounds interesting, but whatever. Mowing the lawn, listening to this. I'm just, for some reason, I can't stop listening to it. And these talks are from like the 40s and 50s and 60s, and the quality is fucking awful.
I can imagine.
It's just the worst shit ever, but I'm compelled to listen to it. And I start trying this shit out, and it starts working time and time again. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is what happened to me 16 years ago. But instead of it being a drug-induced thing that I can pin on the drugs or just being crazy, like I'm not crazy. Holy shit. And I started to stabilize it. So Jesus Christ is just this awakening of who you are. You stabilize the state. You don't feel weird. But when we think about Jesus Christ, the man, and what he did, if you want to think about it like that, he blessed everyone. So if you attain this state and stabilize, and it sounds fucking trippy as fuck, and it sounds like you're going off the deep end and all of these other things, but when you stabilize it, you literally can start blessing whoever you want in your life. And you don't just talk about it. There has to be the external visible proof. That's the hallmark of this shit not being a delusion. But these techniques are like incredibly accessible. And the truth is we're doing this all of the time. All of us. And you want to hear the techniques? Should I tell you the techniques? Yeah. Okay, this is it. There's multiple of them, but this is the main thing. And this is based on the premise. I went over the promise. You're supposed to go over the law first. The law gets you like shit in life. It gets you calm. It gets you stuff. It gets you relationships. So people like to start with that because it's like, great, man. Sounds good to be God, but like I'd actually like my life to be a little bit better. So you start with the law. So this is the law. The law is that anything that you feel and believe to be true is inevitably expressed in this reality. And that's not that difficult for people to understand. If you feel depressed, reality reflects depression to you. If you feel happy, reality reflects happiness to you. If you feel like reality is being reflected back to you and you catch yourself and doubt it, that doubt is reflected back to you. It's a constant state. So here's the technique. And this is how you balance the masculine and feminine imaginally, which is more real than this world. This is like a dream. And it sounds crazy because we have children. We know like the love we feel for our children is not dreamlike. That shit's real. So it's weird because this is also a dream, feels super high stakes, but we choose this for a reason. You got to play around, like you said, when you get it. But here's the technique. You find a desire. You find something you want. This is something you're serving up yourself. And you identify it while you're awake here. Could be anything. Anything. If you want to be free from a person, you imagine a situation like this. As you're going to sleep at night, you can do it as a meditation during the day. You can do it after you smoke some weed. You can do it, you drink. You can do whatever the fuck you want. There's no holy space one has to enter, be vegan and all of these things. That's great if you want to do it, but you don't have to. It's this liminal boundary between going to sleep and being asleep at night. I'm talking about actual physical sleep. And you can do this during the day. You create a scene in your mind's eye, and if people are confused about what that means, imagine being at the beach. Close your eyes and you're at the beach. You're there. You're at the fucking beach. Do that, but imagine a scene, a very short and compact scene that implies your desire or wish, a scene that implies it's already been fulfilled. Not the way it will be fulfilled, but that it's already been fulfilled. So I use the example of something that you and I will never do, so we don't implant this subconsciously by accident. Let's say we wanted a promotion at a job. We work a 9 to 5 and we're getting paid a certain salary, but we want that 20% increase. We want that. What you would imagine is a friend hugging you or shaking your hand and saying, congratulations on the raise. And you imagine it with the same sensory vividness as this world. But the most important thing is the feeling aspect. You need to feel as though it happened. And inevitably, as you're doing this short and compact scene, your mind will wander. It might expand the scene to what you're going to do and all of these other things. But you snap it back to this short and compact scene, and then you go to sleep. What the active mechanism, and I haven't spoken about this before, what's happening there is the desire is perceived with your conscious selective mind. That's the masculine principle. The female principle, and we're in the rise of the feminine right now, so this is very important to understand this shit, is what receives it and ultimately births it into this world. That's the subconscious, impersonal, non-selective. There's no morality for that, just to be clear. There's no law that says this has to be used for good things only. Look at the world. Look at the fucking world. We can see the evidence that you don't have to use this only lovingly. That said, use it lovingly for a lot of reasons, but this is an impersonal, and this is why Jordan Peterson and some people think that females represent chaos and that equals bad. It's just because it's non-selective. If you tell your subconscious to do something, it's going to do it. It doesn't care if consciously you perceive it as painful, but you don't have to do that, is what I'm suggesting. So anyway, you implant the seed to the subconscious. You wake up the next morning. Don't take any extra steps to make that thing happen. If there's some goal where you wanted that raise, don't try to work extra hard to get the raise. The reason you don't do that is your logical and analytical mind, when you inevitably step into the scene exactly as you imagined it, will build a bridge of incidents that'll say, oh, well, that happened because you did this. That's happened because you did this. That happened because of this. But this is probably not as much for you as anyone who would be listening to this. You don't want that to step in. But when this happens, inevitably, time and time again, you start to realize like this is an operative mechanism. You do it to stabilize your immediate surroundings. It's nice to talk about moving into 5D and higher states of consciousness, but if the person who's listening is dealing with immediate abuse, trauma, poverty, it can be hard to get to those states because you're burdened by the physical and present emotional reality of what's going on. So I say that stabilize that shit first. That's what I did. I needed money.
Yeah.
I just was like straight up money. I need money. I just had a kid. I didn't have an income that I felt was dependable at that time. I was like, I needed money. Do that. And then what this always leads to is appropriating states of higher consciousness. And what I mean by that is just feeling better about your life, dropping the bullshit that gets you stuck in any situation. That's one technique for future events, for revision. You do the same thing. You go in your imagination, you imagine the scene of trauma, of abuse, of anything, and you rewrite it. You literally just change it imaginally, and it might feel silly and it might feel stupid. Like, why am I doing this? It's crazy. It's crazy.
It was when I first woke up, it was the aliens taught it to me as virtual reality therapy. And then in readings, when I come across people's trauma that people are clearing, trying to get to 5D, trying to get the 5D download won't integrate if there's certain types of trauma, because if the inner child is split off, you can't integrate it. And I'm like, just picture yourself in situations in which little you got split off, take big you into the room,
Yes.
scoop little you up, and walk little you out of the room, like healing these big wounds just go in and parent where your parents didn't parent. And but then you got all these like these mental programs you have to get past where people are like, oh, my trauma is not as bad as other people's trauma, so it's not trauma. You know, you got to get past all these things, but it's all just clearing of programming. But that's interesting. Yeah, they called that virtual reality therapy in 2000.
That's what my wife just called what I described. I don't remember specifically what I was talking about, but she was like, that's VR. That's VR. Yep. I was like, oh, I was like, it is, isn't it? She's like, it's like putting a VR, because the last part of this is the world of senses. This shit has to be denied always. It doesn't mean we deny it to the point of like an ascetic and we don't experience the fruits of our imagination. But if what you're seeing doesn't conform to what you imaginally pictured, don't take this literally, because if you do, you're creating a self-perpetuating loop. It's a feedback loop of an after effect.
Judging what reality is based on what's in front of you just will, because people are like, I am poor. And it's like, you're not poor. You just happen to create poverty up to this point. You can just jump off of this timeline anytime you'd like. The timelines don't give a shit. We put all these value judgments on stuff. The timelines don't give a shit which one you're on.
Because it's impersonal. It's the feminine. If we want to look, we're in duality right now. I very much like to live in unity consciousness because it's fun, but I also respect we're in duality now. Looking at it through the lens of impersonal and personal, selective and non-selective, and applying that to because you have these terms that I fucking love, because like I don't think about it like that because I'm getting it from different places, and
right?
Different downloads, right? But that's really fucking interesting that you can look at it like through different modalities of trauma and how you can help people in different ways. Because this is the thing with poverty. there's a section of people in consciousness that hears that, and their threshold guardian, what I call threshold guardians, resistance is, oh yeah, well, what about like it's just because that's what's, it's like a video, it's just what they are. And you smash them when you see them. Joseph Campbell knew what they were. They live inside of us. And what's trippy is,
oh shit, I'm connecting sometimes. I love talking to other people who get their information from, because like we're all coming together and it's like, okay, that's what I would call this. That's what I would call this. This stuff comes up so much in readings right now. I do readings all day, and that's how I know where the collective is at, is because I'm like, okay, this is, because it'll be 5 readings in a day, and it's the same thing. It's all manifesting different. So, internal family systems is the 3D therapy modality of, we're taught our whole life that every thought in your head is one stream of consciousness. And you actually have your critical mom lives in your head. All these different things live in your head, and you have to like tag them. You have to tag them and observe them and make sure that you're controlling who's at the microphone, and you're shrinking the ones that don't serve you. Like I'm in the process of shrinking codependent protective self. And so when you try to make connections, you try to get that 5D download, threshold guardian is an excellent description of the thing that shows up and is like, or we could self-destruct. You don't get to do that. You don't get to make money doing what you're passionate about. Is a big one. That's a 60. That's actually a 60. If you have an idea stirring up inside of you of how to create the new world, that's the 60 is collaboration.
how high are we going up? 11?
We're right now trying to integrate 5, 12 total. 13
I get plus off, unity.
Yeah, it's like that we still get to like experience life. This is like a cool thing, to the best of my understanding, we've never done before.
Yes.
Where we're taking physical bodies. There'll be a different kind of physical body. We are transmuting them right now.
Yes.
And we are going to live on the planet as an awake collective consciousness, still experiencing individual whatever.
Right.
I think after 8, it gets so fuzzy and omnipresent up to 12 that it's but like 5 to 8 is tight. Like 5 to 8, I'm excited for, because it's like, and then 8 is the maybe I quit or something, or maybe it's just so much back into one consciousness. But that's why the timelines are becoming so obvious to everyone, because we're now up in the multi-dimensional, multi-timeline ability. And I think after like 6, I'll be able to like hop into your body and, play you for a little bit or whatever. All that stuff's becoming much easier.
We do that at night sometimes. I've done that a few times. I don't lucid dream at night. And, when you smoke a lot of weed, you don't dream at night. And some people view that as suppression. What I have come to realize is because this stuff will shift you into these realms now, here.
Interesting.
So dreams that you can't control when you go to sleep, as I understand it, are undisciplined imaginal acts. So you basically have to unpack the contents and apply them into your world, which is like complicated and hard. It's like doing long division now on paper. It's like, it's just a concept. I don't know what the fuck to do here. So you don't have to do that. You can basically, use this world as your alchemical dream and use the state before you go to sleep at night to impregnate again that subconscious feminine birthing principle. And then this is the trick that I think a lot of people have, because the poverty stuff I did then collapsed it because I got attached to it. I got freaked out by it. What happens is I think you plant the seed when you use that imaginal thing, right? The seed is planted. And then what a lot of people do, what I kept doing a lot for things, is keep planting the seed. I was like, plant the seed again, plant the seed again, plant the seed again. I didn't just let it chill and let water come and let sunshine come. So what I've learned to do, a term I like, is carry around the knowledge of what you imagine to be true like a light fragrance. Like it's around. You don't have, it's not a stinky fucking fish in your face that you have to obsess about. It's just around. It's going to happen, because when anyone thinks about the things that have happened in their lives, they've always known it's kind of going to happen. You can still be surprised and shit.
Yeah.
But it still happens. So that's the secret, I think, in terms of controlling this aspect of the waking dream and moving up these higher states of consciousness. You have like the technical blueprint of what's going on. I just have the general feeling.
Yeah.
So tell me more about
Well, I think it's so cool to watch. And this is something that happens. People will call me and be like, I don't know if I'm going to get to go to 5D. And I'm like, you're in 5D. If I make any sense to you whatsoever, you got the download. And they're like, well, I'm not experiencing a lot of the things that you're, and it's like, we all have a different job. Everyone's waking up to what they are in the collective. The job I took when I had the near-death experience is that I would gather a group of people, that I would gather a tribe of like an energetic cloth, because first you got twin flames that are just trying to connect to one person, right? That has to happen first, because this converging back to one consciousness is traumatic. It's traumatic. Now we can all jump up and go spend some time in 5D and have that, but to actually come together in a way that we live in a world without war and without hurting each other and stuff, like this is a traumatic process coming back to one consciousness. Tons of trauma and stuff has to be healed right now. And so everybody's got different jobs. Some people are just, you go to 5D and you hold that space there because you have to hold that frequency. That's kind of what you feel like to me. It's one of these people that just, you go to 5D and you just hold it, because as everyone else is like giving birth, right? 3D has to give birth to 5D.
Plus it's really, 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 really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I am a little, I'm not going to say jealous, because I don't want to have to start hacking jealousy. No, I love. So it's funny how many of the jobs that I took, which I think I may have signed up for a few too many of the jobs, but it's funny how much it lines up with my personality.
Let me ask you this about the aliens, what you refer to as the aliens. Do you think you can tell them what to do?
I think they're just us in the future.
They are in the future. Do you think you can tell future you what to do?
I don't know that telling someone what to do exists in the, like, I think they come from 8D, because they're still.
Do they incarnate as physical beings ever?
I mean, they did at some point. This is where time gets real fucking weird.
I'm with it. I'm with you on all the time stuff.
So the vibe that I get is that's me coming back in time to communicate with me. And
this is why Shane was so tripped up by the time travel stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's when he was like, we're time travel. And I was like, well, what if I told you? So I love this story. This is a few months ago, and I've been awake for 20 years. And I spent 5 years outside of society getting trained and taught everything for this transition.
What did that look like?
A lot of meth. I mean, it did look like a lot of drugs.
That's fair.
Shit tons of psychedelics.
Yeah.
But when I would go to sleep, quote unquote sleep, I would, the place you go in between sleep and dreaming.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that Twilight sleep place.
Twilight sleep. Yeah.
I would be in that the entire time, and the aliens would teach me. I know how to levitate. I know how to move things with my eyes. I can't do it yet because not enough of us are on 5D yet, and I think it's a 6 or 7D trick, but I know how to do all that stuff. I still to this day get trained to do it. I fall over every time I lift up off the ground. I've been in levitation school for a very long time, but that's pretty similar how walking is for me, so that's not surprising. But I know how to do a lot of higher dimensional things that I was trained by them.
Yeah.
I got attuned to Reiki in 2013, and
Cool.
when she started teaching me that, I was like,
the
woman who was attuning me to Reiki, they send you the paperwork and then they attune you, and I was like, oh no, I already know how to do this. This is the balls on my hand thing. I got taught how to do this in 2000 by aliens. I just didn't know what any of it was called.
Okay, can we talk about this, because I've known for a while that there's levels of consciousness that I've communicated with since I've been a kid, but I've been doing this. I did it the other night, and it was the weirdest thing. And I've done the balls of lights with my hands. No one's teaching me this. I'm not reading it about anywhere. Right. So I'm just intuitively doing it. I'm like, this is real. I was doing this thing where I was going down from like I was laying down in bed about to do these imaginal techniques and basically balancing energy centers all the way up to the top of my head before I started to do this. And normally you can at least have the illusion that it's just in your mind and the sensations you're feeling aren't physical sensations and it's not correlated. It was literally like lights were turning on each time.
Yeah.
But I don't have... So is this like a consciousness that is like a two-way conversation that you can distinctly tell you're talking to a different version of yourself and know it? Or is it just like you're just doing this stuff and then unpacking it?
There's several different ways.
Okay.
Number one, they communicate through synchronicities like all day. Sometimes people will talk to me and not even know that they said something. They'll channel real quick to me if it's like an emergent thing that I'm not paying attention to. They talk in my mind. You know, everyone has guides talking in their mind, but they're the smallest voice. You have to learn how to make them the loudest voice. And then sometimes I will straight up channel. Like I'll sit down and write down like a message from them. But
Okay.
a lot of stuff, and then dreams is a big one. But a lot of stuff. So our bodies are transmuting right now. And the chakras, I feel my chakras more now than I feel physical things. So I know, like you feel a tickling on your forehead is your
feels like
third
it's
eye.
rotating like
Yep,
weirdly.
that's your third eye.
Yeah.
A
know.
lot of head pain right now because we're getting these
Yeah.
downloads so hard. So all the head pain is the crown chakra is just
I
shit
knew
is
it.
getting jammed into the crown chakra.
Oh man.
If if you feel the top of your head, it should be a little bit hot.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
you're getting migraines, you don't usually get migraines, or you don't usually get a lot
Yeah.
of migraines, and you're getting
Chick
a lot of
flashes.
migraines, that is programming is getting stuck. That means you have some trauma or something that needs to be cleared, some programming that needs to be cleared. Because the higher dimensions are basically like downloads you get. And then each dimension comes with a new set of senses, a new set of abilities, but it's like downloading Windows 10 on a computer that had Vista. You have to deal with the corrupted.
That's your analogy.
Yeah, I know. You have to deal with the corrupted files. So if you have religious programming that's contradicting this, if you have trauma that's contradicting this, you have to work on all that. So that is what a lot of people who are, when I say you are a placeholder, and that's an assumption based on a couple of hours around each other, but you have a lot of people deep in the trenches, like the Twin Flame Collective are people who incarnated maxed out with karmic loads. And so those people right now are just working through karma as fast as they can. I'm in the Twin Flame Collective. I'm in the Vampire Collective. So there are a group of people who have spent lifetime after lifetime after lifetime with energy sucks, 3D energy sucks that cannot be transmuted to 5D. They've got these karmic attachments, right? And so we're all breaking those attachments right now. That on a microcosmic scale does it for the collective. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
So by beating these things, the Twin Flame Collective is beating out old love paradigms.
Do you feel like you have the tools to quickly and efficiently do what you just described?
I personally, tomorrow, could not be in any of these. I personally could just get out and go up, but there are no jump cuts in reality. Like for us to collectively, there are no jump cuts. So do I know techniques to be on a different timeline tomorrow where I have none of this? Yes. Would that help humanity? No.
So you're looking at it kind of like, do you know about bodhisattvas through the Buddhist lens?
No.
So bodhisattvas Buddhism is very weird in a lot of ways, but essentially the psychological conception is there is nirvana and samsara. Nirvana is enlightenment. It's awareness of, it's being awake and fully awake, but in a way that is not troublesome. So not like the awareness of awake, like a glimpse and kind of like having to deal with it. But in Buddhism, samsara is classified. There's 6 levels of existence. There's like divine beings all the way down to hell realms, and humans are in the middle. Anyway, psychological states and all this. But in what we were just talking about, remind me. This is important. What were we just talking about?
Taking 3D, transmuting it into 5D.
Transmuting into 5D through the Buddhist lens of samsara. Bodhisattvas, right. Okay. So those are threshold guardians when they pop up. I've noticed this in the past when I would forget what I was saying. I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I don't know what I'm saying. But I've recognized it now as sometimes like, this is important shit that people need to hear. So bodhisattvas are this. They are beings who are future Buddhas who stave off their current enlightenment to ferry across every other sentient being to the river of awareness. That's what a
wow.
bodhisattva
Yeah.
is. It sounds like what you're describing.
Yeah. If you heard me, Mormon and The Meth-Head podcast is, if you listen from the beginning, you hear me about 4 episodes in describe unconditional love.
Okay.
And at this point, I'm living in, like, I've been living
What year?
enlightened for a very long time.
What year was this?
This was 2 years ago.
2017.
Fuck, this was a year and a half ago.
2000.
And I talk about an open-handed love free from attachment and everything else.
Unconditional.
At this point, I make some type of deal because then people are like, yeah, that sounds good in theory, but then how do you do it, right? And I've done this so many times, it's ridiculous. I don't know when I'll learn my lesson, but I've basically eaten the apple, right, of the knowledge of the tree and death. So then I go to sleep. I'm awake. I'm aware the entire time, but I have now immersed myself as far into the codependent programming as possible. So now I have to show my work. But by showing my work, I'm in complete full-blown love addiction, right? And I'm suicidal. Now at any point, yes. Could I say I don't want to hack this program anymore? Yes. But that doesn't get everybody off. Like, that doesn't.
You think you needed that experience to then be able to alchemically ferry people across?
This makes it sound like I think I'm super important, but karma is interesting. Karma is interesting. There are a certain amount of people on the planet who can. I've been done with karma for a long time. I finished my karmic path. That's when I died, right? I finished my karmic path, and then they were like, you can go back. But you can, if you already know how to hack it, you can put yourself back into karma and hack it again and again and again, and it's breaking the karmic bonds of humanity.
Chains.
Yes.
What I refer to as karmic chains.
Yeah.
I say become a karmic terminator. That's what I've been doing.
So I'm currently hacking codependency. I am hacking
by experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So, and then I show my work. I have a podcast where the whole podcast is. So am I currently someone who has codependency? Yes. Did I adopt that? Did I accept that programming?
I have a question.
Yep.
Can you go into the state, experience it, and then quickly and efficiently move out of it and retain the same knowledge that maybe you imagined would need to be extended for you to fully be able to get people out of the states?
I think it is directly related to how deep the programming is.
But you're reprogramming yourself. That's the key there. And I believe this fully. Just to be like, I know when people are running false narratives, you're not. I fully believe zero balance, fucking zero karma credits. You're good to go. Do whatever you want. I'm going to run it up a little bit because I want to experience this thing because I'm going to need to tell people this thing. My question is, how much are you running up the balance? How quickly can you pay it off? Is there a way to do it faster? Maybe you put up a bigger balance, but you do it faster so you get the whole spectrum of codependency in a very short period of time.
I think it's a pretty short.
Pretty short. Okay.
It's been less. It's been a year and 5 months.
Okay.
Since the activation.
So that's pretty quick. Yeah.
Pretty quick. And I found out I was codependent late July or late June. And I'm already basically have hacked it.
Okay. That's awesome.
Next, I'm hacking aging. And
I'm with it on that.
And then also I'm in this vampire thing now.
What? So explain the vampire collective.
Okay, so we got 4D came on in 2012. This is when we all died. We all logged into the same mental space. So we're all mentally
I say 2012 we died. Collectively shifted timelines, killed the versions of ourselves.
It was the end of the strictly 3D reality. Okay, but cool. the download that we got was that we signed on to the same mental space network, so air energy. And nobody knew that we did that. A lot of us did. A lot of us very consciously.
Some of us felt it and had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, it was compared to what I'm working with now, I had like a secret Facebook group for people I woke up. I maybe woke up 25 people that year, but that was a lot for me back then. And so we watched it sign on, and then everybody who was aware of it just was like a little bit better at manifesting reality and was able to hear the thoughts of everybody else. No big deal. And then this is the big one. 5 is the biggest one. To the best of my knowledge, it's the most difficult one because it is the emotional space. So the magic powers that you get with that is that you're able to see everything as an energy exchange. And so there will be no more deception. There'll be no more lies. Everyone's like, oh, everyone's starting to wake up to the fact that the elites and the government, whatever, that's just one like parasitic collective that is just feeding off of your energy, much like a narcissist. So when I'm talking about vampires, I'm talking about narcissist energy. Somebody who purposefully triggers you to feed off of you. Someone who gaslights you. Someone who lies to you. Someone who uses you as a source of energy for them. They are themselves a void. They are incapable of. It's interesting when we say everyone is one. This is not one. This is part of the 3D reality that cannot come to 5D.
I'm with you on like 95% of it. Here's where the 5% I differ. It's a big 5%. I don't view anything. I've learned how to function in this world and still be like a cool, normal person. Luckily, I don't view anything out here as different than me.
Yeah.
Vampire energy, Donald Trump, the homeless person on the street, the guy who cuts me off, the person who's trying to fuck over my family, the person in the past who tried to destroy my career. Like, I know what it is now. It's my own shit being fucking projected out there to do exactly what you're describing, kind of like resetting the karmic balance. It's all fucking you.
Yeah.
It's all you. So when you say vampires, if there's the conscious awareness that it's coming from within you, it's projected out where this is a game that's being played, it's something that we're doing and we like to deal with it. I'm 100% on board with that because why the fuck not? We got infinite things to do. If it becomes the awareness that consumes you and you forget that that's the game you're playing, and I think this is what happens to a lot of people. I mean, I think that's basically what incarnating is like we just amnesia ourselves for the most part. And so like, and the fun of it, the reason we do that, it's like, why would we do that? Because it's fun as shit. If you're omnipotent and know everything and can do everything and you want to fracture off and forget, you can't just create this doll that you play with. It's just a doll. You have to go into it. And the only way of doing that is dying into it. And then the game you play is you wake yourself up to it, the hide and seek. That's basically, it's like the first game a kid learns. It's hide and seek. That's what we're doing. Now that I figured out a way, at least for myself, and I see it out pictured in my reality and for the people around me, even if it takes a little bit of time, I think we can all do this pretty fucking quickly now. I think it is going to be, and what you're describing about going into 5D, this is what it looks like for me. And in the Buddhist lens, in Tibetan, it's Shambhala, utopian society, basically an enlightened society of people who know how to function, not like shitheads. Like that's basically what it is. As you move into the best version of yourself, which I can attest to the fact that the anti-aging thing is real in this reality. As you move into these versions of yourself, as everyone does this, it inevitably leads to the timeline where it's the best version of the planet. That's what's going on now. I don't know if I'm just overeager. I've been overeager in the past. I don't sense I am now. There's a sense of equilibrium. I think we're hitting the fucking turbo boost.
It's going so fucking fast right now. And 6 comes right after 5. They're kind of running concurrent. There is, and I don't, from the information that I've gotten and from what it kind of feels like, there is a split happening. Now, whether or not that split just manifests as we all live on the same planet, but they are like the characters in the video games that you could walk through them if you needed to or whatever. The karmic reality will continue for a giant chunk, 2/3, a big chunk. We will be a much smaller group of people on the planet going to the higher dimension.
Do you think we're still here on the planet or shifting just consciousness wise?
I've got several theories. For a second, I was like, if you would have asked me a month ago, I was like, oh, it's going to the earthquakes were happening. And I was like,
you're freaking yeah.
She just shakes them off the planet. But I don't know how much of that is fantasy. I just want that to happen. We could easily all live on the same planet and we just don't perceive them and they don't perceive us. But the vampires they can't come to fight. So like 5D downloads are encrypted in trauma. And if you do not clear your trauma, you do not get to go. And that's how we don't take, I was doing an episode of a podcast recently where someone's like, the Book of Revelations is playing out, but it's frustrating because the billionaires will win. And I'm like, the billionaires won't, they can't go anywhere. They're parasites. And so, but the role that the parasites play in our life absolutely is a projection of our own self, but that's where you work out your salvation. So if you have a narcissist in your life, somebody who abuses you, somebody who diminishes your experience, someone who gaslights you, that is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. Cutting your vampire out, starving your vampire, is the microcosmic projection of your macrocosmic journey in self-love. Does that make sense?
It does. How do you start that process?
Number one, you have to mirror your own experience.
Boom,
so the
okay.
big interesting thing about waking up to your vampire is that you probably made excuses for this person for a long time. And this is why, do you feel me get a little bit triggered when you say, because they love empaths, they love enlightened people, and they love to be like, I'm you,
it's like a mosquito.
I'm one with you. And we've been talking a lot about psychopaths and narcissists and borderlines who aren't in check, and psychopaths who have this, they love bomb you, they mirror all your stuff, then they get you close, and then they slowly pull away from you, and then you runner chaser dynamic, and then they discard you, and then they come back and feed off of you. Or if it's a parent, a lot of people with narcissistic parents, they live inside of your consciousness after that, and they just feed off of you. And then everything that you create and everything that you should be doing for yourself, you're still pumping energy into this person. So the first thing you have to do is wake up and not make excuses for them. So this is a phase of the healing where you have to just honor your pain, and it doesn't fucking matter. If this person cannot exchange energy and only takes energy, I don't give a flying fuck if you're me or not. You now live on the other side of this firewall, and you get nothing. Because in 5D, we all have unfettered access to each other. So vampires can't be here. They can't. You can't. Somebody who takes or takes and then gives you trauma in exchange. An example of a narcissistic energy would be someone who shows up and, from like an ex who shows up and just is like, oh, hey, remember this thing that you don't like about yourself? Now you can use that to evolve. Mirroring's a great way to evolve. Yeah. But they want to, or they make this. Trump is like the fucking ultimate. He's like such a parasite that it's like, I don't even know how people take it seriously.
Do you love Trump yet?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. It's just whatever. He gets nothing out of me. He gets zero. Well, yeah, I love you, whatever, jerk off motion. But like, this person's so obviously meant to trigger you back into lower dimensional reality. Who cares? Yeah. I'll laugh at him occasionally, but for the most part, it could not. You ever had a dream get so ridiculous and then you wake up? Like, that's what's happening. Like,
that's
wake up.
Exactly what's happening. That's the perfect way to put it.
It's just laughable.
It's laughable.
So, but there are a lot of Trumps in our lives, right? A lot of people who show up, but if you have a karmic bond with them, or you've been doing this for lifetimes, they've been traumatizing you, and it is to wake you up, and it's all part of the thing. And then eventually, I guess, they show up. I don't really care about that part. The thing we're currently in right now, realize who your vampires are and cut them the fuck off. I'll love you from afar or whatever, but you got to get the fuck out. There is some connection to the sacral chakra, especially if you've had sex with your vampire. That needs to be removed. You need to engulf yourself in a violet flame or whatever your deal is to get your energy protected. And then do not let this is where non-attachment really helps. Recognize this person as a vampire, as a parasite who gets your energy. So they'll show up with some ridiculous argument and try to get you freaked the fuck out. And they're getting energy when you freak the fuck out. So this is when the non-attachment of like, oh, you're here just to trigger me. This is just to trigger me. And this is really a dance. All of this stuff is a dance that represent whatever's happening in your physical reality is just a representation of what's happening. So this is you learning self-love. This is you learning boundaries is a big one. Boundaries. Because we are becoming one, and it's important that we learn how to let those walls down, but learn healthy boundaries so that you and I can exchange, because we will essentially have access to each other to where I could just tap into your talents and use them. Yeah. Now, if I'm a vampire, I can't have access to your apartment like that. I shouldn't have access.
I have some alchemy. I don't know how receptive you're going to be to it right now. So the most effective thing I've found for dealing with difficult people, relationships, external situations, whether it scales up to Donald Trump, whether it scales all the way up to evil, or just someone in your life, or anything external, a trivial thing, you stub your toe, it's you. So what I've been saying is this, is life is a symphony of synchronicities, and you're the conductor, and the song you're conducting is one to wake yourself up to who you really are. When you wake up to like the unity thing and know how to build the bridge to it, basically what we're talking about is building a bridge from the unconscious aspects of yourself to the conscious, and stabilize that and keep it open, is you start to look at, and so this is again probably where I'll disagree with you. Now, this comes with the caveat. If you are being abused physically, emotionally, psychologically by someone around you in physical space, get away. Like that is an important thing that I don't want to get lost in this. However, the only way I've effectively ever changed any external situation in my life, even if it means cutting someone off, is by internally doing it. And what that inevitably looks like, especially for difficult people, vampires, is you have to love them, not in a forced, let me think of loving them, but genuinely forgive and love them. And if that is too foreign in the beginning, you start with yourself. And when you forgive every aspect of yourself and you love every aspect of yourself, you can then push that towards them. Now, again, this doesn't mean you don't get away from bad energy. Do that. But a weird thing begins to happen. Like you talked about in 5D space, people share. I'm super aware of this. I've been doing this. I just it's innate. We don't take anything on, right? We Michelangelo everything. There's the sculpt, there's the thing of clay, and we pull away until we see what we want. So if there's a talent or a person or relationship, that's what we're doing. We never add on. It's not as I see it, how it works. It's a constant removal process. So you remove the parts of you that didn't have a talent. I remove the parts of me that didn't understand tarot. You can look through my Instagram 4 or 5 months ago. I'm like, what the fuck do these mean? I'm like, I don't know. And now I'm like, holy shit, the red symbolizes the passions and the alchemically or Robert. Like, anyway, my point is this, is you can essentially quickly drop aspects of yourself that bring up the external threshold guardians, that bring up the emotional vampires. I think there's value through experiencing that, but only to the degree where you recognize it's a conscious choice as well. All of this is unconsciously being done, regardless. That's how it happens. It's ipso facto. It has to be there for it to be outpictured into this world. But if it's making you uncomfortable, if you're feeling afraid, depressed, anxious, scared, intruded upon, nervous, those things, that's the karma, that's the shit that has to be dropped to live in, I don't know, 5D, 60, 70, but I know to stabilize these states where you can literally live the life of your dream. So those things that seem like delusory fantasies, but you know are in your heart, the way to that path, or the collective path towards that, is exactly by recognizing, like, there's this weird thing it's so true, and it's so fucking annoying sometimes, is whatever you condemn, you become. It always happens. And this doesn't mean that if you condemn Jeffrey Epstein, you become a pedophile. That's not what it means. What it means is that the hatred that you're imagining, or the sickness that would lead him to do the things that he did, begins to grow in you. It's this opposing force. The same thing is true of love. But if you transmute it, not in a force, don't do this shit if it doesn't feel natural. It has to feel natural. And that took me my whole life up until a few months ago to be able to, like, literally love people. Like, when I look at Donald Trump now, I see exactly the same thing. It's just the energy suck. He's a vampire. He's just trying to get people tuned in. He feeds off it. He needs it. Why? This motherfucker is so hurt. He is so incredibly hurt. His imagination is strong as fuck, by the way. No one else in the world thought this dude was going to be president. No one. I bet his family didn't think he was going to be president.
Everybody helped fucking create that.
He fucking believed it more than everyone else. His shit is super strong. Listen, he's a really interesting archetype. He's a wrathful being, not evil. He's a wrathful being, and he is expressing his wounded healer archetype, his fucking, in the most twisted, demonic way. But when you really recognize who he is, you just send him love. You don't approve of the objectively horrible shit he does. You bear witness to the vampires. You bear witness to people who what they're trying to do and what they're reflecting is the world is just revealing their state of consciousness. But if you want to help them, which I know you do, you have to figure out how to internally send them the opposite of what they're sending. And that doesn't mean being physically near them. It doesn't mean having an emotional relationship with them. It doesn't mean having a psychological or mental. Basically, it's kind of exactly what you're talking about. They're just out of your mind.
There's not a huge disconnect from what we're saying. We're kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
There's two different types of healings that need to take place.
Okay.
The one you're talking about would have been what I would have said a year ago.
Okay, good.
This would have been the 4D thing.
4D.
The 4D thing was about recognize the pieces of you that are in everybody else.
You're just over it now. You're like, fuck this.
No, it's just a deeper thing, which has been an excruciating process for me because a ton of stuff that I said, because that was the 4D process. Recognizing yourself and other people, knowing that we are all one. It's a mental space. That's a mental space healing, and was necessary because it is true. The emotional space, because here's what happens when you're traumatized by someone else. When you're traumatized by someone out, you lose pieces of yourself. So this is for people that are still in this trauma. You have to now go back in order to heal those wounds. You have to heal them from a place of honoring your pain. And what happens is with the 4D, forgiving other people and accepting that everything happens because it's all part of a big dance, because this is all a game and none of it is real. That's all like part of it. And that was 100% my doctrine before 5D came. 5D though, and a block of 5D healing is that it feels so petty and it feels like it's in contradiction of the 4D healing, but it's not. Is you have to honor that pain. And it's through it feels like separation consciousness, but it's not, because it is ultimately in the end, after we've healed this 5D wounds, we will all probably come back together again. But number one, for most people, these people are still in their physical reality. For most people, this person is your mom, your boyfriend, your ex, your whatever, your baby daddy, your baby mommy. They are purposefully in your place.
Yeah.
What people do, and I've seen this, we've spent a lot of time on this on the podcast recently, and this is something that we've been working on for 6 months, is people immediately want to start making excuses, and they want to their critical factor, their critical companion wants to weaponize what you're talking about and use it as an excuse to allow the vampire to still be a vampire and say like, oh, well, it's me. But
tricky.
Until you have healed the part of you that was abused, you have to acknowledge it. You have to observe it. But the crazy thing that happens in this is that then you go, this clicked the other day, waking up to the fact that I've been emotionally abused. I have to honor that pain. I have to go through all of those memories now from the perspective that I was actually a victim for a reason, to heal those wounds. And as I'm healing it, I'm like, oh, but I have some of these traits. And then I am then able to heal that. So it is all just kind of like an unpacking of everything. Give it its moment. Hug that part of you. Let that part of you. But that vampire, you can be me, but you're going to be me the fuck over there. I know you're a part of me, but you're not a part of me that's allowed in this process, because they are actively taking energy. So for me, Trump doesn't trigger me. I'm not brown.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
It's
but
easier,
I'm not going to stand from a soapbox and tell a brown person to stop being triggered, because be triggered until you've worked through your shit.
Right.
My vampire is someone who's abused me.
Right.
And I still have to fucking deal with him. And I'm healing through that. I'm working through that, but learning how to not let that vampire take advantage of me anymore, and learning how to set boundaries. My old thing is just to disappear and cut people out of my life, but that's not, we're learning to be one while setting boundaries. Yeah. And so that's a lot of what that healing is.
I see.
But
I get that very much.
I get it, because this is, because at the beginning of my podcast, you hear me talking like this. And then I used to feel like people's trauma was something I needed to cure. And I used to feel like, oh, you don't have to feel that way. Oh, there's a magic blah, 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 blah. And then I started getting this jump cut message where the aliens were like, listen, there are no jump cuts. This is a movie that somebody is watching, and there has to be a very believable transition from one to the other.
Unbelievable, though.
I know. And they're like, so you have to be in it and find your way out of it. You don't just get to wake up one day with a crystal body. You have to go through the process. You don't get to just go from being in a reality where codependency is and attachment is celebrated as love and then just be floating in the sea of unconditional love. We want to see the work. We want to watch you do the work. And so a lot of it is this trauma healing and the pushing away of the vampires. But it's been very interesting to watch spiritual people, myself included, justify abuse.
You have no idea.
Because we're one.
It's okay. I am such a positive place, but I will talk about things in the negative because I've seen it out in the world. And I recognize what this is a reflection of these people and also an aspect of myself where I believe this exists, which is why I don't often talk about these things. But the rampant sexual and emotional and psychological abuse that happens in spiritual organizations of every denomination, of every variety, to me is not only one of the dumbest things a being can do because you're dangling on the edge of like karmic responsibility and knowingly using it like an idiot. But I've heard these things bubble up, especially with people of color who will bring things up in a community, a religious organization, a spiritual organization, and someone will come back and say like, well, it's just your karma. It's just your karma.
Oh my God.
And it's like, what the if you're the person saying that, just to be clear, like you are so much farther away from whatever you think you're doing than you could possibly imagine, because that's the moral justification. That's this weird, it's like the spiritual bypass to end all spiritual bypasses. Yeah.
I mean, on some level, it's true. Yeah, that's their karma, but they are here playing this game right now.
Right.
And I've had people of color message me and ask me to show my work on that. And I was like, well, I mean, I can tell you, but I'm not a person of color. So I can't tell you as someone who's done that work. You want to ask me about how to transcend the trauma of sexual abuse, I can do that because I've done that. But I mean, I'm coming from a place of privilege and that that's not a paradigm I've hacked. So I can't show you, I can tell you a theory. But, you know, I have all these great theories of how easy it is to transcend things. And then I end up becoming them. And I'm like, oh, this is much more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
I am very interested to hear what happens if you try some of these techniques, because there's something about the directionality of the desires. If you can go into what do you call it?
I do all of the that you're mentioning.
Is it foolproof in your mind, or is it like sometimes kind of, well, that was a good hit or like close?
I mostly do just dimension jumping now.
Explain.
The quickest.
Explain.
So you have like up until 2017, I experienced reality as like a landscape, and I would do stuff like you're describing. And I created pretty much everything I wanted. I got pretty much everything I wanted. And I then did a ton, like I was raised poor and like deep poverty programming. And, you know, I dropped out of school in 9th grade. So did my husband. And then we were making more. We never went to college. We were criminal, you know, like felons. He was a felon. I'm a whatever. And like we were living better than, you know, most of the people that went to college. I had everything I wanted. I, you know, got a TV credit from living in Delaware and was a no name and got like all of that was, you know, I pictured it, and my set on This Is Not Happening was exactly to the T, exactly the set in my imagination. I imagined the outfit and had to go find the outfit from the vision of it.
Right.
And then on stage doing This Is Not Happening, reality changed into something where I could feel the timeline, and then it turned into this thing where I could feel the future before it happened in a way that, like, I'd had glimpses of this before, but it literally feels like a sidewalk now, where now I see reality, and it looks like a gray track, like from high school, and it's a calendar, and I can tell you things that are scheduled on it. And like, I'm trying to take a year off, no sex, no dating right now, not going very well, but like, I'm not dating. And, there's a something that pops up in February where I know the date, a relationship or something, a connection.
Yeah.
I
just started doing this.
And it was I was just like, this is just like a new awareness that I have. And so it was timelines. And I described it as a moving sidewalk, and they would light up.
That's
like the squares would light up.
That's
the Billie Jean,
light up
sidewalk thing, from the Michael Jackson video is what it felt like. So I'm like, I have to move to California. I can see it on this timeline, right? I'm like, I have to move to California. My life is turning to shit, and I'm just like focused because I know it's going to be fine.
Where were you living?
Delaware.
Where'd you grow up?
Delaware and Portland. My parents lived on opposite coasts.
I grew up in Maryland, so I know where Delaware is. But interesting.
So my marriage is falling apart. Everything's a mess. I'm like, I don't give a shit. We're going to California. We get to California. And 2 days before I get there, like my tire just blown out. I have no plan. I just know because I can feel this timeline, right? And then I get an email that says, I have assumptions about what this is going to be. I'm like, I'm going to sell a TV show because this is not happening. It's going to blow up and I'm going to be huge, whatever. And then I get there and I don't have money in the bank or whatever. Money is a weird flow for me. I don't get to have it stored up in the bank, but my needs are always met. My needs
fucking telling.
And I'm pretty comfort oriented. So by needs, I mean, it's pretty tight, but there's never a surplus. I just have to trust. And so I get an email that says This Is Not Happening is coming out next year. And I was like, well, I feel it. I feel it in March. I feel it. I can see it on this fucking trajectory. And so I was like, I cried that night. And then I said to Aaron, I was like, sometimes I just have to stare down reality. Reality tries to tell me it's this thing. And I'm like,
but it's
a game of chicken. Yeah, it is exactly. And so after about a month, I didn't fight it though. That's the thing, is we get attached to it and then we end up fucking ourselves out of the good thing. So I don't get attached to it. I was just like, whatever, I can see you there. But if you want to pretend that you're going to be something else, that's fine. And I just didn't, I did a soft pivot. I was like, okay, well, I'll operate under this false reality, but I'm pretty sure that this is going to happen. And then it did happen exactly how I thought it was going to happen. I forgot how I got onto manifesting reality.
Timelines, yeah.
So then I hop off of this timeline. I start hacking codependency. I don't know I'm hacking codependency yet, but I'm emotionally attached to something.
It was like a year and a half ago?
Mm-hmm. This is, yeah. And so I'm emotionally attached to something, so I lose control of everything I'm manifesting, as is emotional attachment. And I am deep, deep trauma clearing. So I'm mostly just having panic attacks and crying a lot, which has a place, has a purpose. But I'm still very good at manifesting reality. So now you got someone who's very good at manifesting reality, who is spun out emotionally. That's a good way to hop on a shitty timeline.
Yeah, no shit, motherfucker.
So now I hop on a shitty timeline. Well, I can still feel the trajectory. So now it feels like in Back to the Future, where his photograph is fading and coming back. And I'm like, well, how the fuck? I don't know how I got on this thing.
You're oscillating, yeah.
Because I used to be very good at visualizing and attracting, but now that doesn't work in this new thing. Now it's like they're prefabricated timelines. Are you talking about
timelines. Now?
No, so
year and a half ago.
Yeah, this is like last spring.
Got it.
But now I think I'm now, rather than visualizing and attracting on this landscape that was the lower dimensional realities, I am now capable of tapping into the multiverse, right?
Creating before it, right? The preceding.
Yeah, I'm just like, now I'm hopping on timelines. And so, but I don't understand these timelines yet. I just fucking got here. I'm like, are they prefabricated? Like they have a predetermined set of circumstances? Like I get the job, but I have to have this? Or can I custom make them? What is happening?
Yes. Custom.
Yeah. Well, I know that now. But at the time, I don't even know how I'm getting onto them, right?
Okay, fair enough.
And so someone says, you know what reality transurfing is? And I'm like, no. And she sends me this 800-page textbook. And for the most part, I have to be self-taught. I've read very little about anything. People are constantly like, telling me like, oh, you sound like the Raw thing or the Law of One or whatever.
Right,
but I
same,
try
yeah.
to read this shit and it's like blah, 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 because I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to get taught by aliens. So I would just I would use it like an oracle, and I would flip to a couple pages. For most of what I know about reality transurfing, I learned from an article because I can absorb an article's worth of information.
Who's got the time for a big 800-page tome?
Fucking seriously. I do use it as an oracle sometimes, but a lot of reality transurfing stuff was stuff that I had already perfected, which is like what they called like getting rid of importance. Because if you attach to it, you're like using the wrong, it's a pushing energy. You need to attract it, which is you have to be like, it's much like creating reality is much like courting someone at the beginning of knowing them. If you come on too strong, it runs away. I learned a little bit from that. What you would love is Tufti the Priestess, because what you're talking about is setting the inner screen. And there's a bunch of different tricks, including some weird chakra that comes out the back of your head and shit. But I resonated more with Tufti the Priestess, even though it was different than what I'd ever done, which is treating reality like a movie. Because I do believe it is a movie being watched by beings. That's something I've known since I was a kid. Yeah. But in the duality, experiencing them as something above us watching us.
I feel you.
But she talks about, and she's channeled by the same guy who wrote Reality Transurfing, but she talks about setting the inner screen and then setting the outer screen. And then there's all these techniques and stuff, which I fucked with for like a week, but it's basically a frequency thing. Whatever frequency you're vibrating on, you can pick the thing. And then now I'm opening portals. That's something new where I can just right here in the physical reality intend a portal right there and walk through it.
That happened to me by accident for 3 months 16 years ago. I didn't know it was happening, but I could physically feel it, and it kept freaking me out because it felt like the ground was shifting below me when it would do it. And now I think what I'm doing is what you're describing, but I'm doing it when I close my eyes and do this stuff, or when I go to sleep, because when I wake up, I feel the difference not only internally, but then externally. Like I see crazy shit happen.
Yeah.
Like it constantly and what you're saying about the repellent force is so important. Cause like I think a lot of people will get this like glimpse of what's going on, a glimpse of awakening or a glimpse of not being poor anymore. And then they get super attached to it, and then it pushes it away. And that's where I think that like fragrance, like carrying it around lightly, like knowing it. But you said something too. All of this stuff is belief and assumption. That's what creates, as best as I can tell, this world, whether you're jumping timelines or manifesting relationships or getting out of abusive ones. It's the belief and assumption that it doesn't have to be a screen. It can be a voice. Like I talk about using a friend's voice like an angel. You imagine someone's voice saying like, oh my God, that's so great. It happened to you. And you can hear their voice. You keep replaying it over and over again. You eventually believe it because the deepest part of you heard it. So it's got to be true. And then it's outpictured into this world. I'm wondering, basically what I'm doing right now is taking all the things you're saying and figuring out how to directionally use these to up-level myself, because I recognize the faster I do it, the faster it happens out there. But B, the other thing is exactly when people, because like I'm sure this happened to you. Like my podcast, I've been doing it for like four years, and I've had periods of growth and waning, ebb and flow. But when this clicked on for me, shit just started going bonkers. Like not just in downloads and stuff like that, but like the amount of communications and what people were telling me, like their deepest shit ever, like it just started going bananas. And now I look at it as like, okay, these are things that people are dealing with. These are things that I have to get some experience with so I can start telling them specifically with this situation, the quickest way to get out of it. And to me, maybe I'm wrong. I'd be curious what you think, but like I move quick with this shit. I like to move quickly and up. Like I want to stay here. I'm not doing this to leave this reality, but I like the feeling of being able to break my own karmic bonds and stabilize that state, and then give people at least the option to do it, not do it for them. I don't believe that exists. You can do it, but it just don't. It's just like, you don't want to take that on, but give people at least the option to fucking do it for themselves. That's kind of what it feels like for me. And like overtly, I'm going to do it on podcasts. I'm going to be doing it with music covertly because you can embed shit in there.
Right.
But that feels like what the name of the game is. So like when timeline jumping and you open a portal, what is something you would do that for?
So this is another thing too, why like trauma clearing. Because so long as you're still karmically bound and so long as you are still just being motivated by your trauma and your programming, you're just going to pick a bunch of shit that doesn't bring fulfillment anyway. Right. So it's kind of good that people are unconsciously jumping dimension or timelines, because you're jumping to timelines that bring you pain, that bring you triggering, that's bringing your healing. So it's like, I think that's why the timelines don't come into focus until you've gotten to a certain level, because you would just end up, I'm going to jump to where I've won the lottery or something fucking dumb because you have some false idea in your head of something that would make you happy, and it wouldn't fucking make you happy. And what would happen if you had the ability to consciously create everything without having done the work to heal and find out who you are?
Why do it? Right.
You would end up killing yourself because you would feel like happiness doesn't exist. So stuff that I do it for, I did the cups, which is just a magic ritual.
Can you explain this? So I don't know anything about it.
It's so dumb, but it's like good. It's a good thing for people who still need things to be a thing. Yeah. I know that I can just click my heels together and be wherever the fuck I want. So it's like, but you don't see me choosing, I like excitement. I like to experience everything that life has to offer. So people might look at my life. My life's pretty awesome, but people might. I've written in a lot of smaller beginnings because I like experience. You don't see me riding around in a limo packing out theaters because I'm doing what I want to do. But anyway,
do you want to do that
eventually? But cool. I want to have the memory of when it was small.
That's what I was just. So can I tell you what I was thinking today? I love this. I was walking. This is such a fun. Past me would have said you're a full-blown narcissist. There's something wrong with you. Anyone who hears this is going to know you're a narcissist. But I'm walking down the street and I'm like, I'm really enjoying anonymity right now. Like, this is fucking amazing. And I was thinking, because like, I know there is going to be a point where this is not accessible in this way. Like, maybe I can David Bowie myself and put on the glasses and walk down and still have a little bit, but it's not going to be like, you almost bumped into me, guy. Like, you know what I mean? And it was just like, I know exactly what you're talking about now. And it's something most people, when they think of their dream of reaching their, big stage stuff, they want to get there right away. But what you're telling me, and this is what I'm hearing from you, is the appreciation, stopping to smell the roses at every phase of it is really fucking important.
It's like sex,
Yeah.
If you immediately rip your clothes off and immediately fuck, the blowjob's not going to feel good. The taking off of the clothes, you could tease this out and enjoy every fucking every moment of the tension. But if you just ass fuck out the gate, that's it. It's done. You've blown it.
I used to have sex and jerk off. Yeah, no,
it was great.
Exactly like that. And I couldn't control myself, and I'd fucking come within 3 minutes every single time. Starting 2.5, 3 months ago, when I recognized it's just what you described.
Yeah.
And it's fucking, and my wife and I, like, it's amazing. It's just like, and it's like one of these things we'll look back and be like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, you can have screaming, amazing sex if you tease out every second of the undressing and everything else. So I treat reality pretty close to that, because I know once you get and you've done all the stuff, it's like not as good. I'm not looking forward to fame. Every single time I do, I don't know. When I was young, I was wired for it. It doesn't feed something for me. It sucks to have.
But it's a responsibility that you can use benevolently.
Yeah.
So you're okay with that.
But I still am in a little bit of a later. Let's just do it a little bit later.
That's
but
fine.
Yeah, it doesn't scratch an itch like it would have when I was younger and I had more of an egoic desire for it. Now it's like a responsibility and not a burden is a heavy word. Do you know what I mean? It's I do. Remember being like, you're a famous actor. You should just deal with people in your shit. And like, I barely have people in my shit now. And I'm like, oh, this sucks, dude. It sucks. I look a lot. I think I'm a lot prettier on camera than I am in real life. So I can go wherever I want. Nobody recognizes me. But I've had people recognize my voice, and then I have been recognized a couple times, but not even that part. Just having like the world having an opinion about things that happens in your life. It's annoying. I guess it's like not
irrelevant.
Yeah, but it's a thing. It changes the premise of your life. Anonymity's pretty fucking tight. You know, we build fame up like we build money up, and it's not as, you know.
No, but think of it like this. Money can be used to glorify the ego. It can also be used as a very powerful, if consciously aware, healing modality, right? Like you can actually use it to help someone if you know that it's actually going to help them, not just perpetuate a situation. So I used to have a very bad opinion of fame. I'd look at famous people and I'd just, I'd be like, there's something wrong with them. Like, they're trying to fill a hole in their heart. And a lot of them probably are, a lot of famous people, but it does just amplify your this reality reach, which is true. That's how you see it with like podcasts. As your reach grows, you're hitting more people. And if you're putting out good shit and your intentions and aspirations are good, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it just comes with its own set of stuff for someone who like caused me to recalibrate a lot of things in my life, which is good. It's part of the process, but I have a hard time not feeling responsible for not wanting to fix everybody. So if you present a problem to me, it's very difficult for me to, like, something I've had to learn big time in the last few months, boundary stuff. Is if you, which is probably why it's triggering when you've done it to me. If somebody presents a challenge or a problem to me, I want to solve it because I do know how to solve every problem, right?
Right.
And so I want to be like, well, there's a cure for that. Oh, you can do this. Or you can do this. And it is probably not, I've come across people recently who don't want me to do that. And that's been interesting. Because I feel like I can see the problem and I can see the solution. So of course I'm the one that's supposed to solve it, or at least let me give you the keys to solving it. And like my twin flame that I have a podcast with, I realized that I was intruding on his boundaries by constantly trying to solve his problems. Yeah. But then I also, at the same time, I get a lot of people coming to me with their problems because I'm known, and it's like, 100 people a day messaging me, and I used to try to keep up with all those messages, which is insane now, but that's the codependency in full action, is that I feel like I need to be fixing people, proving my worth at all times. It goes into a bunch of stuff, but having a large group of people, I don't know, it just comes with a lot of things. You have to think about every single thing you say. You have to, there's consequences for all this stuff. Yep. People are applying things I say to their lives. That's a lot different than living life outside of this. Like there is a responsibility.
Inside outside is supposed to outside inside. I get it.
Yeah. And there is a lot of people, I consider myself someone who doesn't care what anyone thinks about me. And I don't, for the most part, considering the things that people say about me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. You're not my cup of tea either.
No, but you kind of care.
Oh, I care about hurting people's feelings. I care about offending people, not offending them like because I'm edgy, but when I offend people because I've just stepped on something that they hold dear,
Secret,
just made some dumb brazen comment that I'm not even thinking about because I'm used to having this tiny circle where it doesn't matter. Now
we used to be able to talk like this with just like,
I have this huge circle, and it's like, oh, there's consequences for what I say. I mean, on the grand scale, doesn't matter, but like fame is its own thing. And I can't imagine being like fucking famous, So that is something that I'm like, oh, this is a whole thing. And, you know, but at the same time, I like it. And I like the slow build to it. I like experiencing, you know, I like going on the road and doing small venues and having mishaps with travel and stuff.
Right.
I like it. I think it's a good origin story for later. And so my podcast partner and I'm like, we will one day be doing huge things if that's what we choose to do.
Of course.
But I'll be sad that we didn't do this if we didn't do this.
Ah, that's such a good.
Not sad, but like, I love this. I love looking back in 5 years and being like, you know, when I was married and we ended up, you know, well off is probably an exaggeration, but we ended up getting to do whatever the fuck we want, driving brand new cars in a big, nice house. You know, I liked looking back and being like, do you remember when we didn't have money for dinner?
Right.
Do you remember when we built this from nothing?
Right.
I like that.
That's what we're talking.
That kind of thing. Yeah, I can click my heels together and have whatever, but for what? It's the experience that is the thing.
I think for a lot of people, it's perfectly said, because that I think is overlooked when you come into, well, we're talking about whatever lens you want to look at it through is just bending reality, jumping dimensions, using magic. There is sometimes a tendency to skip. What's weird is the techniques I use, you live from the end. That's how you summon forth this reality and bend it to your will. I was talking with the first podcast I did today, as I was like, just be aware of the dimensionality of time. Like if you picture yourself looking exactly how you look now and you feel it's this season and that thing has happened, like that's a short distance of time. You know what I mean? That's going to happen right away. If you do it and it's like in the distant future, you're setting up kind of a canvas that allows you to appreciate and surprise yourself and experience what's going on in between. And I think...
Oh, you would love Tufti. You're basically explaining it. So she says you can't change the script. Nobody has control over the script. The script is written by the universe. You can change the reel. So you can change the movie. This is the movie where I become a famous actor, but you don't get to tell reality how that plays out. And that was the chaos thing that I said. Because you can, when you're manifesting reality, say, I want no chaos. I want this via no chaos. And I never do that.
Right.
I never do that. Not because I like drama, but because I like a good story, man. I want to, at the end of this, I want a good story. So here's my cup story. And then we got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I'm going to piss on this couch. I was financially dependent on my husband. We split up. And we didn't split anything up, though. So all of his paychecks would go into my bank account, and I would pay all of his bills and all of my bills. I was still acting like a wife, even though we weren't together. And then I would send him the remainder of the money, which was, by anyone's standards, plenty of money. But for whatever reason, every couple of weeks, he would be a dick about it. And I have his kids and whatever. And I didn't want to fucking deal with it anymore. He was being an asshole about it. And so I put on the cups that I wanted to be financially independent. But at the same time, I'm going through a breakup with my podcast partner and this beautiful dynamic between us. But like the relationship wasn't working because of the codependency. And so we needed to take some time apart, which means we needed to not be on the road. So this is a strange time to do this. So I put on the cups that I want to be financially independent. Okay, so you take one cup that's the current dimension that you're on and it has water in it. Then you take another cup that is the dimension, the timeline you want to be on. And you should do one thing at a time unless you're an insane person like me. So you would put in debt in the cup that has water and financially free on the cup that has no water.
No water.
Make sure you don't mention the debt on the second cup. Don't take your old timeline with you.
Gotcha.
Then you pour the cup, Google it, because it's, you have to like feel the thing that you're in and then feel the thing you want to be in, whatever.
Feeling is the secret with all this
Yes,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah,
so you sit there and feel the one you're in, and you drink it, and then you feel yourself, and then you constantly check, you're like, I am financially independent. Yeah, you make sure you're playing that character. So I put that I was currently unemployed, because essentially that I was financially dependent on my husband, that I was painfully in love with my friend, and then something about my appearance. And then on the next one, I put financially independent, making 6 figures in entertainment, and happily single. And the stupid thing about my appearance, the appearance thing was like instant, because God, could anything matter less? And I do that the next day. Now, how if it was a jump cut reality, I would just get a job. and ex-husband would get to take all of his money and everything would be fine. But that's not how things, that's, someone has to watch this fucking movie. So let's make it entertaining. The next day, my ex-husband loses his job. And now I have to be financially independent, like it or not. The breakup comes, which was kind of already in the works. And I have to go through excruciating pain, but I do end up happily single because I find out I'm codependent. I get the keys to this fucking prison and, life's great. I almost lose everything because then I have to, then I start entertaining a timeline where I have to move back to Delaware. This is the thing where you forget, where you get a little bit of pressure, and then you start believing that reality creates you and not vice versa.
I call it collapsing back into a former state.
You go back to sleep. And so here's this reality that's like, what if you end up just having to move back to Delaware? And like in reality, it's like, why would I pick that? Because you're literally picking it at all times.
Right.
But when there's pressure, you have to do something to relieve the pressure to trick yourself. So I decide I'll just go get a job selling cars because I know I can go do that and make 6 figures and like it's fine. Just knowing that I have that plan B kills that timeline that's breathing down my neck. And now I'm back on my timeline. Shortly after that, I kind of have this come to Jesus moment, no pun intended, where it's like, I think you need to get one foot off of, I'm like still straddling the line where I wouldn't talk like this. I would only talk like this on a podcast like yours, but then on my own podcast, you can never really tell where I stand because I didn't want 3D to think I was crazy.
You didn't want to reveal yourself.
Right. Yeah. And so, but we're hitting critical mass. And so, the aliens are like, you really need to pick a square, bitch. And so I picked a square. And then the next day, Karen Rontowski says, why exactly aren't you doing readings? And she says she has said this to me before, but I must have immediately dismissed it, right? Because of my own bullshit. So 2 weeks later, I was a professional tarot reader. I do that full time. I make ridiculous money. And everybody gets what they want because she was like, dude, half of my clients are your fans that would love to get this from you. And it is a million things. It is me doing the thing I agreed to do. It's me doing an energy exchange with fans that, I don't even like the word fans, but with fellow people from this tribe that want to have this conversation with me, but feel bad bother. It's a million things. And I got everything that was on the cups, but like excruciating couple of months. And there is an option of writing no chaos on there, but then you're just going to kind of get a jump cut. And I could just open a portal and do that, but I don't want the boring version. We got a little bit of dichotomy left. We got a little bit of yin and yang. I want to soak it up.
You're like squeezing the last bit of it.
To me, this is the most fun thing ever, is to be awake in the dream, but still be in the dream. Because I spent a long time.
Do you think that's going to end soon for real, though?
Yeah.
Like 2020, you think?
Yeah. The 2020.
You think everyone's going to collectively...
Karma is ending. So I think the dichotomy ends with karma. I don't know. This is when they told me gender would cease to exist. I thought we were literally not going to have dicks and vaginas anymore.
Yeah.
So, and then now gender doesn't exist. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I have theories and I don't lean into them too hard because I don't want to be wrong. But we are... In readings, I got a lot of past life stuff coming up, which to me leads me to believe that we're scraping the bottom of the trauma bucket and healing quite a bit. And then 6D, every download I've gotten for 6D is about collaboration and about everybody bringing their thing to the table.
Right. You're right.
So I don't think we're going to have the option to experience pain much longer.
Oh.
Our bodies won't. There'll be no disease. There'll be no death. Like,
you
what the fuck are we
that's
going to have?
Timeline? Why? You can go to the bathroom if you have to, by the way. Now it is. And we're back. I don't know what the fuck we were talking about.
I don't either, because we had 5 conversations after I got back from the bathroom. What were timelines?
All right, well, let's go practical. We've covered a lot. Let's bring it back down to earth for people who are listening.
God, if you're still listening and you're on Earth.
There are. That's what's crazy.
Somebody left me a 1-star review. I've already ranted about this on my podcast, but somebody left me a 1-star review and was like, they did call it interesting, psychobabble. And was like, this is just unchecked psychosis. And I'm like, why are you listening to anything I'm talking about? 5 minutes into me talking, you should turn it off. If it doesn't resonate, it ain't for you, bro.
The 1-star reviews are funny. I laugh at them because it's like you had to like also like review it negatively and take the time to do it.
You had to log in.
Yeah, log into Apple Podcasts and shit. It's like, what are you doing?
You are triggered, obviously.
Funniest review. This is what I'm realizing with the rating system. The funniest type of rating you can get is a 4-star review because the person is so specific about what it is. Like 3 is like the middle, 2 you suck, but like 1 is your garbage, 5 is your great, but 4 is like there's a definition of what I want this to be, and you're not it.
And this isn't it. Yeah,
I love that. I love
it's really the criticisms that people put out. The culture of speaking on other people's art is so interesting to me because it would just never occur to me to tell a podcast that it should be one thing or another. They're like, you should stop talking about this and you should start doing this. And it's like, that's interesting. You should start your own podcast is what you should do.
I had this happen where someone wrote into me and basically said that you should have this type of guest on. And I was like, I've actually really been trying to get that type of guest on.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations? And they were like, no, that's your job. And I was like, well,
oh, really? You know what else is my job? Picking my guests.
Yeah. And also, this is a podcast where like, what do you think I'm doing? Like my guests literally, like, I think we got connected because of Ramin 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is how all of my like, they're not like very planned out things at this point. Like they just kind of happen. So I'm not like,
the Soberish.
Yeah. Please talk about your podcast. This has just been a rambling interview of us talking about interdimensional consciousness.
Well, I consider Mormon and The Meth-Head the podcast to start at. So start at the beginning of that. And that is myself and a Mormon comedian started a podcast about him being a Mormon and me being a meth head. And then it turned into this, basically you hear us re-waking, like you hear the awakening, like you hear us working through all this trauma and stuff, and it's all very transmuting 3D to 5D, but it's very funny and sad and all these things. It's a great journey. I think there's like 70 something episodes you have to binge now. And then Soberish, while we were going through a breakup, we decided to take 60 days without seeing each other because we couldn't successfully break up. And during that time is when I'm trying to figure out how to make money. And I get an offer for starting an addiction podcast, which is not something I give a fuck about. And so, but I can give a fuck about making money, you know? So I was like, yeah, okay, I know how to podcast. It is a talent of mine. Like, I do think you're supposed to get paid to use your talents, you know? So at the time I was like, I guess that makes sense. I now know that it was a trick, that it was a trick from the aliens that I work for. And because I am reluctant, did you call me reluctant mystic?
That's what I call you.
am the reluctant mystic. Yeah. I am the coordinator for a tribe full of reluctant mystics. We didn't get into that. I've got a lot of like reincarnated gods and warlocks and stuff that are all waking up and realizing who they are, and they're all pissed because they're like, this is dumb. I feel like a dork. I feel like a fucking dork. I have superpowers, but why don't I just leave instead? So I was like not wanting to. It was very obvious that I was supposed to become more public about this stuff because I think I'm supposed to speak up so that the people who are all afraid that they're actually losing their minds hear me, and that they all find me, and they all do. And so anyway, I started this podcast. It's called Soberish, and I record 10 episodes, I think, and I dropped 3 or 4, and I hated it. I am usually someone who's very good on podcasts, and I was awful because if I'm not interested, my autopilot is the worst version of me. And so I was just autopiloting to all this because I don't give a fuck. I don't care about recovery. I used to. And it's fine, but it's not a passion thing of mine. Obviously, I'm talking to fucking aliens all day. So I was just going to quit. I was like, I don't care. Like, I'll just quit the podcast. I don't give a shit, you know? And I was getting all these messages from people because I had just done Tinfoil Hat, and I was getting all these messages from people like, where can we hear you talk about this stuff? And then I was like, oh, you slick motherfuckers. Because I never got paid. I never got paid for the addiction thing. So I'm just stuck with this podcast. And then I realized I've been bamboozled.
Yeah.
And so I switched it to a podcast about consciousness. And it is mostly, I have on some guests, but it's a lot of just straight up channelings, or it's deep this shit.
Yeah.
So I try to steer people away from it unless you're already on this trip, because it will sound insane otherwise. But this conversation that we had is very similar to what you would hear on that podcast.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just me the whole time, just telling like shit I figured out from readings or stuff I got from the aliens or whatever. So like this week is me talking about some downloads that I got and some energies and some common themes or whatever that people are in. That way people who can't afford a reading or don't want to do that, I can be like, okay, but these are things that you're probably experiencing. So I want to have stuff like that. I want to do YouTube readings. I do want to make things available for people who don't have the money.
You know, I manifest, I'm using the M word. I selected a version of reality where I have a YouTube channel with 14,000 subscribers that didn't exist 2 months ago. You can use it for whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all yours. You can monetize it, do whatever you want. That's why it exists. MindPod. Do you know about the podcast network?
Are you the podcast network guy? Yeah. I saw that. I was like, if I was going to join a podcast network, that would be it. But okay.
All you do to join is we put you up there. We put your shit out. You meet everyone on the network. Any guests they have, you can have because they'll introduce you. There's no financial arrangement. There's no
ads.
No, there's no fucking ads. I'll introduce you to potential sponsors if you want. I do a CBD company because I like weed and they're cool and they play binaural beats to the plants. But no, there's no fucking contract. There's nothing. The YouTube channel. So I was making a fuckload of money from it. That's when I solved my money issues temporarily. I was $200, $300 a day doing nothing. I was like, whoa. Then I got attached and it went down. I'm like, oh, this wasn't for the money. This is for the network. Now there's a lot of people tuned in because what I was doing is restoring old Manly P. Hall talks, who I don't even think is that interesting. He's okay. He's just a spiritual guy. And Neville Goddard, this other dude who I really like. But I was cleaning up the audio because I know how to do that. And it basically just attracted it was the funniest graph in the world. It's like, and it just shoots up like everything. But yeah, seriously, use it however you want. There's ways. I know how to use YouTube now, but like if you want to do launch any stuff and get like a wider audience, it's yours. Direct them to your shit. It doesn't matter. It's all
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been for like 3 months been working on this. I'm supposed to be a YouTube
star.
Go
for it. I'll show you it. It's super easy. It's fun. Yeah. There you go.
Heard it here, folks.
This has been amazing. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions and then one bigger question and then we're done for now. I'll be in LA later this year. Maybe we can do it again.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
What's your favorite number?
9.
I knew both of those. What's your favorite animal?
I have a weird aversion to the animal kingdom. Cat, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Oh, no, wait. Owl. Sorry.
Owl. Of course. You told the owl story, Athena.
Owl and snake.
Of course, and olive branch, olive tree, she represents as well. Yeah, did my Athena research yesterday. Last question, a practical tip that's helped you in your life that you could share with people listening. Could be anything.
Drink water. So much water. Listen, first of all, don't put ice in it. Second of all, if you've lived your life without drinking water, I'm not talking tea, don't squirt some color in it, nothing. Water. Room temperature water and guzzle it. Drink the equivalent of an entire bottle in one shot to actually hydrate. You need it for this process big time. If you are someone who's been chronically dehydrated throughout your life, or you've been a sipper of water, or a person who puts ice in it or something, and you need to train your body to take it, lick your hands, put a little bit of salt on your hand first, like you're doing a lemon drop or whatever, lick the salt off. This is just a trick I learned. If you have some kind of health issues, obviously talk to your doctor first and then drink the water. That'll stop the thing where it just sits in your stomach, but drink so much water.
Yeah.
So much water. Yeah. And then after a while, it'll become intuitive. But every time you drink coffee, drink an equal amount of water. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll get that thing where coffee makes you tired. And yeah, water. Water is a big key.
Last thing, where do people find you if they want to find out more and hear more?
JessaReed.com has links to absolutely everything. You can find my social media. I'm getting away from Facebook because it's 3D and moving on to Instagram.
I know, me too. What the fuck? And I'm so bad at it. That's the funniest thing. And I keep getting followers. The funniest thing.
It's funny how you have to learn.
Yeah.
Like I was so good at Facebook. I had like perfected. I was
Yeah.
crushing on
Yeah.
Facebook. And then I'm like, oh God, we're all moving. And so then I got pretty good at Instagram, but then stories became the thing. So now I'm doing all right. I watch a lot of stories. I'm pretty good at stories, and now I'm learning how to tweet.
Twitter's the best, by the way.
Yeah, you're a good tweeter, right?
I just tweet it's just all Twitter is digitized consciousness. You are getting an accurate reflection of that person. When you take away the mouth and the other communication tools, it's like one step closer to telepathy for people.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty awesome to like see. I have to go back and unpack mine's stream of consciousness. So I'll have to go back and be like, what the fuck was I saying there? And I'll drop in like Oracle stuff, but I love Twitter. Twitter is so cool.
Yeah, I like it. I like sad tweet mostly. That's where I go to
I
be
used
sad. I'm like higher consciousness
saw.
on Instagram. If you look at my two different things, it's funny.
All right. Thank you, Jessa.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're here after that was long, then you enjoyed it. So awesome. Go to jessareed.com to find out more about her. She does stand-up. She does podcasts. She does cool shit. That's it for this episode. Rate and review this podcast. Subscribe. Do I have to say that? mindpodnetwork.com. Go check out the YouTube. Go check out the website. Go check out all the podcasts on it. Everyone's doing cool shit. Everyone's fucking awesome. So are you. Imagination creates reality. Until next week, happy imagining.